coming on this national holiday. We truly appreciate it. Yeah, that's fine. They can be rowdy. We like rowdy. I just wanted to let y'all know, these are the meeting notes. If you don't have them, come see me. There's a bunch of QR codes. If you've never used a QR code before, you hold your camera phone over it, and it will pop up a website. And on the back, there are a bunch of county offices coming up for election in the primary. And we're going to have a candidate training class if anybody's interested in running for any office. All the precinct chairs for Wise County are empty and up. So if anybody wants to run for GOP precinct chair, and then there's several county offices that are up. And the elections office will be giving us more information about the municipal elections and school board elections that are coming up next May also. They don't have that information yet. We are going to have Pastor James do our prayer for us. There he is, he's coming. Thank y'all for being here.
I don't know if Amanda could have put that any lower. Stand. Sorry, you caught me talking. Let's all stand. We're going to pray as we begin tonight. So grateful for you guys to be out here tonight, especially coming off this celebration weekend of our independence. He who the sun sets free is free indeed. Amen? Aren't we glad that we're free? So let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this day that you've given us. Thank you so much for the ability to live in the freedom that you have given us. Thank you for the men and women who have given their lives to defend that freedom and that liberty. We recognize them, what they gave. We recognize first and foremost that your son Jesus gave everything so that we could live in freedom. Father, bless this night. Bless this time together. May your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name. God bless Texas. Amen? Amen. Amen. Y'all be seated, or are y'all be seated? Have a good one.
Hey, y'all. So we have Lisa Cook here that wants to come up and say a couple words. You're right there. A couple words about this event down Hazlet. Come on up, please.
Hi, y'all. It's good to be here. I'm going to invite Angie to come on up. One of the things that I was really struck by in the last year and a half was that I was being told constantly, you don't have a voice, and by the way, you're all alone. Anybody ever felt that way in the last year and a half? Well, you can't feel that way very long when this gal lives next door to you. She moved in last year. This is Angie Nelson. And she got in touch with me, and we've been chatting, and we had so much in common and shared a lot of conservative values. And she got in touch with me in May, and she said, I'm thinking about having some folks over to the house. Do you want to come get together and just talk about what's going on in the world? And I'm like, I'm all in. She invited a lot of people in our neighborhood, and I think about 3 couples showed up, right? A couple people showed up and they said, oh, that would just be like talking in an echo chamber. What good is that? And we said, we think there's something special that's going to happen if we talk to each other. So we did. There was 3 couples. This last time we got together, we had what, 6? 6 couples. And out of that meeting, of just getting together and talking about the reality of what's going on in the world and how we feel about it and what could we do and praying about it, an idea just came out. And one of the gals said, we should do a flash mob. And I'm like, and we should sing the Star Spangled Banner. And next thing we knew, this woman is an action woman, and this idea turned into action. And she ended up finding somebody who people would probably pay to sing. She's so good.
6 good singers.
I'm one of those that you pay not to sing. Don't come. Just stay home. So I stepped out of the singing part. But what they did was they went to Walmart in Hazlet on Saturday morning. Woo-hoo! And at 12:10, they started to sing. And it was amazing. It was like Walmart just set up a flag for us and the whole 9 yards. And we have some folks who were there as well here tonight. And they started to sing the Star Spangled Banner. And her husband, who's a YouTuber like I am, filmed it and got it up on YouTube, got it up on Facebook. And we've come to find out that millions, I think we're in the millions now, have seen it. It's been featured on Fox News nationally, it's been on The Blaze, it's been on Twitter, it's been everywhere. And it's been absolutely amazing. And one of the things, we want to share the video with you tonight, but what we wanted to, our message to you was that you do have a voice, and we couldn't think of any better way to express that than to get out there and sing and let the people know Walmart. And the checkers chimed in, and people stopped their carts. I do a podcast and a YouTube channel, and I had people emailing me after I shared it saying, I sang with the video and I cried the whole way. So we just wanted to let you know that all it takes is just an idea and a little bit of action, and you can make a huge difference. And we want to thank Andy for inviting us here to share the video with you and to let you know that we're all here doing exactly what we know we were here to do. So with that, did you want to share anything else?
I just want to say that, you know, a few good singers started it, but the Walmart employees that are Texans and the people in the aisles that are Texans, they're the ones that made that feeling. When you watch the video, you'll see, you can just, the balloon man was crying, we were all crying, and it was just because we love our country. And one person, like she said, just talking to your neighbor, it's not a big thing, that's all we're doing, and we're not done.
That's right. And one last thing I wanted to mention was Fox News kept saying this spontaneous thing happened, like somebody lit a match. And there was spontaneity in those who joined in, but I thought what was actually more important was that it went really fast. It came together in like 48 hours, but it wasn't totally spontaneous. Somebody came up and got together and said, let's talk to each other. Then they got an idea, and then they actually took action. That is the best kind of spontaneity. So with that, we just want to share with you this video.
Hi, y'all. Surprise. Y'all can stand up and sing with us, please. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, forever waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties.
Hey y'all, okay, this is a much better crowd than I figured we would have on July 5th. How many people had a day off? All right, thank you all for coming. How many people are from Wise County? How many people aren't from Wise County? Okay, cool. All right, well, hey, I'm gonna try to go through some information very quickly. One thing that I'll say before we get started, if you guys are in favor of Texit, we have a Texit petition here. Basically what this does is puts it on the primary ballot. So this isn't the HB 1359 referendum act that we have been talking about in the last few months over the last session. This is actually kind of a different effort to just put it on the primary ballot so we get a vote, so people have a sense, hey, where do Republicans stand? Is it 50%, is it 20%, whatever. But there's a petition here, and it's actually an official thing. He has to read you a little script, so if you guys want to go in groups afterwards and do it, if you're of mind to do so, that's available to you. Okay, so real quick here, we're going to go through and just kind of talk about some items of business. I want to just harp on the fact, I said this last month, I said them in the weeks prior by our email list and whatnot. This last session was not the most conservative session in history. We got a couple things passed. So there's green checks. We got a little bit of religious freedom so that we could protect people from something that's already protected in the Constitution, right? And we also have constitutional carry. Yay, that's a great thing. It's a good place to start. It wasn't the most conservative, it wasn't the most comprehensive constitutional carry bill. It was more of a permitless carry bill, but that's what we got. And we have a special session coming up. Next slide. And this special session starts on July 8th. We do not know yet, we have Schroeder's cat here. We don't know if it's dead or alive. We don't know what's going to happen in this next session, this special session. We know it's going to be 30 days because that's how special sessions work, but we don't know what's going to be in it. So that's up to Greg Abbott, and he's yet to say anything. We're just days away, and we don't even know what the priorities of the session is. And as you might know, it's up to the governor to decide what is in a special session. So that's what we're facing here, is we have this time that we might be able to get some of those priorities that we didn't have in the last slide passed, but we don't know if he's going to put them on the session. So that's what we've been asking people to call. Wise Conservatives has signed on with Grassroots America and petitioned Greg Abbott to try to put some good things on this session, so we'll see if he follows through. Okay, as you know, Alan West announced yesterday, so now we have 3 contenders in the race for governor. And those are Chad Prather, Don Huffines, and Alan West. So we have this great team of people to stand against Greg Abbott this session. And if you don't know, our governor that we have right now has not been the most conservative governor that we've had in the last 20 years. In fact, it's actually been kind of sad because I thought that the man was going to stand up and support our rights. But what we've actually seen over the last couple of years, and increasingly through COVID, is that our rights aren't sacrosanct. The rights that we have in the Bill of Rights are not, the Texas Bill of Rights, are not going to be stood up for by our governor. And so that's why I think that you're seeing this very large contingent of people standing up against the governor. I think this is outstanding. So Wise Conservatives is not standing behind one of these 3 men, but we're standing behind all of them. Okay? Next slide. Okay, so this is something that we're doing, and this is, I think, unique. I was talking to some folks in some other grassroots organizations, and no one's talked about doing this, and this is going to be the coolest thing, I think. This summer, we're going to designate 2 Saturdays, July 17th and August 14th. From 8:30 to 12, we're going to get together. We're going to meet at Rise Church's parking lot. And there's a sign-up sheet over here, and email me if you find that these dates kind of open up for you. But this is going to be really cool because we're going to actually practice and learn how to block walk together. And in doing so, we're going to reach people in Wise County for this group. Because the thing we need to be able to do is to have a voice and to be able to stand up. We need more people, more butts and chairs, so to speak, in this room. So it's summertime. I like to say this is a great turnout, but the thing is there's a lot of unreached conservatives out there, and you meet them every day. Everywhere I go, I sit there and talk to people. Hey, do you know about Wise Conservatives? We have this group of people, and people are like, I didn't even know you existed. Well, how would they know? Because half the people have gotten off of Facebook. How are we supposed to reach these people at this point in time? So this is what we're going to do. And so how many guys are interested? Just a few hours, 2 Saturdays, and you don't have to do both. Do one. It's going to be great. Next slide. So that was finding our people. So one of the things that I'm going to pitch to you right now and put this idea in your head, and I want you to prayerfully consider, is try to find your people. And that's when I say that, as I'm saying that, running for office is one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done. I found my people just by knocking on doors, by running against them, You know, this is the coolest thing because you actually find out that there's this group of people out there that share all of your system of beliefs, that share all of your ideals and your hopes and your dreams, but you don't know them because oftentimes they're not in your church. Sometimes they are. But the thing is that you go and run for office and you're going to realize, holy junk, there's a lot of people out there that are just like me. And it's the most encouraging thing. So that's one reason to run. Another reason to run is to save our state, right? So, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to host a training class in September. So if you are interested in running for office, and there's a lot of offices open, just go through a few. We've got 2 county commissioner seats open. We've got county judge open. We've got a May election that's actually going to occur probably before the primary election. So we're actually going to have school board positions that are open. We have a host of city council slots on that May ballot that are going to be open. And that's just to name a few. And you know, here's the thing, if you paid attention to this last May election we just went through, most of those seats were unopposed. There was only a couple in the entire county that were actually opposed. Same thing with school board. All these Bridgeport school positions, they were unopposed. That's unacceptable. And one of the reasons that this group exists is to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because right now, and I'm gonna go through this in a minute, we're fighting CRT at every level of our society. And the reason we're fighting it is because we've elected communists to our school board and we didn't know, because it's nonpartisan. And there should be no nonpartisan races. There should be no nonpartisan judges and no nonpartisan school board members, and there should be no nonpartisan mayors. But that is not going to change tomorrow, and the way we change it is we run our own people that we know are conservative. All right? And here's the thing, even if they don't win, and let's just say, worst case scenario, we run somebody against somebody that may be nominally conservative, that's okay. Because the voter's going to decide who's the best person is. And the other thing is that person that's run is going to learn a heck of a lot. There's no downside to running people. So that's going to happen on September 11th. We're going to go through the Patriot Academy campaign coach material, hopefully try to get some folks in that have run for office that can give some ideas, get some consultants in that know a little bit about running, and we're going to go through this information, so it'll be a really invaluable resource. So go ahead and put it on your heart, sit there and think about, what can I stand up for? Because here's the thing, if we don't stand up for this state in the next year, I don't know what we're going to do. This is it. This is the time. So this is my opinion anyways. Next slide. Okay, so our sister group, and I think this is really cool, Cook County Conservatives. So this is a group that's, we've actually been helping out the board up there to start a group like ours in Cook County. And their first meeting is going to be on July 19th. Chad Prather is going to go up there. So if you have a mind, head up to Cook County, show them some support. It's really, really good on these, especially on these first meetings of these new groups, to have as many people as possible. Nobody knows if you're from Wise County, they don't know if you're from Cook County, but it scares the living daylights out of the establishment when they see a county like Cook County that is filled with people that aren't in their GOP. So the thing is you go to these GOP meetings, they're usually really small, especially in rural counties, maybe 10 people, 15 people tops, the same people every time. And then they see a room full of 100 people, 200 people that they've never seen before, and it scares the daylights out of them because they realize that, holy junk, these people have a reach that we've never even tried to get. And part of that is just because there's conservatives out there. This is a conservative state. So, Cook County Conservatives, July 19th, 7 p.m. Okay, so we talked a minute ago about the situation with the fact that we can't reach people that are on these social media platforms because people have hopped off. And I totally get why you have. I mean, if you're not on Facebook, Facebook's a disaster. And, I was not on Facebook before I ran last year, and I was better for it. I was a much happier man than I am right now. But that said, Facebook's gotten really draconian in the last few weeks. I don't know if if you're on Facebook, you've seen this message, are you concerned that someone you might know is becoming an extremist? Have you seen this, And then everybody puts the little frames on their picture that says, I am an extremist, I'm the extremist you're looking for, which is great. But the thing is that it's worse than that, because in the past few weeks, and other folks that are, steeped in conservative, outreach and whatnot have said the same thing. Our post reach has gone to zero. I mean, I'll post something on Wise Conservatives and people say, it never shows up on my feed. You get like 2 likes. But I'm telling you, 3 or 4 months ago, you get like 50, 100 likes. It's changed dramatically. And it's because Facebook, they've got algorithms that sit there and say, hey, you know what, they use the word federal government or something like that, and they know what you're getting at. And they don't have to have people doing it. They have algorithms doing it. So the thing is that we need a mechanism to be able to reach our people so that we can get information and if you, hey, go make a call to Greg Abbott right now, he's doing something awful. We need to be able to get that out. We can't just rely on Facebook to do it. So we have other mechanisms, and let me just quickly go through. Number one, we have our email list. And that's something, so when you come in the door, put your email in there, make sure it's right. We're gonna be calling some of you because some of those emails bounce. And I think it's because there's maybe we couldn't understand your writing. So we're gonna reach out and try to get that corrected. But we have about 450 people on our email list right now. We also have Instagram and Gab. We're trying to do a better job with those. My wife is kind of running those. Also, if anybody is loving some of these platforms and wants to be involved in helping to support some of these platforms, that would be outstanding. That's what we need. We need people that are willing to sit there and kind of copy or extemporaneously put together posts for Instagram that are based upon our Facebook post or based upon our email post. Because it is a time sink to sit there and try to put the information together and then try to get it out there. So if anybody wants to help, let us know. We also have Gad, and we also have that other thing is that TikTok. And the TikTok thing is we're trying to reach some young people, and there's a lot of young people on TikTok, so my son's kind of doing that. I have no idea what TikTok is, but whatever. Then we have Telegram, and so Telegram is the easy one. And so on your little brochure, there's a little QR code. And what I'd like you to do while we're sitting here, kind of listening to some of this information, is try to pull your phone out there, scan that QR code, and get onto Telegram and join our group. Scanning that code should get you there on your phone. And we'll have technical support afterwards. I mean, we have people here. So afterwards, if you can't get it, come up, we'll get it all situated and square away, because we need everybody on a platform we can trust. And so Telegram is a really good one. It's really easy, it's very lightweight, it's secure. So you don't have to worry about anybody monitoring. It's more of a chat room, but there's a channel, and it's kind of like Facebook. You go on that channel and you'll see, bloop, Wise Conservatives, and then there's a little thing where you can click on the discussion and you can comment. So you can interact with each other. And it's super simple, but it's lightweight and it's secure, and it's been around for years. I don't think it's going anywhere. The thing I like about Telegram is the guy is Russian, and then the Russian government tried to confiscate the keys, and he moved out of Russia and told them no, so he lost his citizenship over the whole thing. To me, that kind of speaks a lot for the platform. So that's the reason why I'm Telegram. So that's just one thing about that. We need to get everybody on a couple alternate mediums. At the very least, a mailing list, Telegram would be great. Okay, enough said about that. Okay, and I'm just gonna fly through this, but I just want to convey what is going on right now. Okay, number one, how many people are aware of all the CRT stuff that's going on in schools right now? It's horrible, and people are now fully and acutely aware of what our kids are being taught and how awful it is. And the thing is this has been going on for a while. The only reason that we've tolerated this and the reason it's got to this point is because they've kind of been pushing this in a soft fashion for many, many years. I mean, somebody said, and I think it's a really good point, it says, if you see something written and you replace the word white or the word black with the other race and it seems racist, then you are a victim of CRT. And that's 100% true. We have standards that apply to one race that doesn't apply to the other. We were supposed to be colorblind. When I was a kid, I thought that's what we were heading towards, and now we're heading towards a situation where we're going full scale. Hey, you know what? Affirmative action isn't enough. We need equity of outcome for all things. And this has happened in the military too, and I'm just gonna go through it. I don't know if you guys are aware, one of the things that happened to me personally is I'm in the Texas State Guard. That is a state military force. Most people don't know we have a state military in the state of Texas. It does not report to anybody but the governor. And so I totally understand and totally reject the idea that we're teaching extremism. We're teaching the idea that January 6th was an insurrection and that, it was driven by all these racists, and that, you should be able to, vet troops and decide, oh, well, I know you haven't done anything wrong, but, we want you to self-report. We want you to report each other. If you think you know an extremist, you should report them. If they're a member of the NRA, for instance. And that's happened in the U.S. military, but I never expected it to happen to state military forces. But it did a month ago. And so I just decided, forget this. I joined the State Guard because I love the state. I have my two oldest sons are in the State Guard with me. One's Grant, he's a corporal. My other son just is Fuzzy, he just joined. He's PV1, and PV2. It's PV2. Anyway, okay. I can't remember which way. I actually never was a PV1, so I don't remember which way it goes. But anyway, either way, I'm a warrant officer. So the thing is that this is a family thing to me. And so I'm not going to participate in this organization on my free time that doesn't align with my principles. So I said, I'm going to fight for this. So I stood up, made a big case about it. This whole training was recorded. We got it out there. And the thing is that Abbott is fully aware. It's now been in all these different it's been published, and the training's been published. And in fact, reporters that have called the state, called the governor's office and said, hey, this extremist training, is this correct? And they said, yes, it is. To their credit, they haven't backed away from it. They said, this is what it is. He didn't say anything inaccurate. This is a fair characterization of what's been done. So a couple of little insidious points is they said, if you remember, the NRA is an extremist organization. They also said that if you believe in Texit, that's extremism. I'm like, well, wait a minute. One of the authors is Major Steve Toth in the Texas State Guard. How can it be extreme if one of your officers actually authored the bill in the legislature? How can it be extreme when Alan West, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who is a member of the Texas State Guard up until today, he just resigned because he's running for governor, said he supports a Texas vote? How can it be extreme if Plank 65, the Texas GOP platform, which is the controlling party of the state of Texas, says that Texas has a right to reassert its status as an independent nation? Whether you agree that it should or it shouldn't, it's not an extreme position. It's mainstream. But no, they're saying no, they get to decide what's extreme. And so this is what's going on in the military. It's nothing less than Marxists pushing out people that they don't want out of the military. People are resigning left and right over this stuff. It's happening in the US military, it's happening in the Texas military. And the people that are resigning out of principle, and that's exactly what they want. And the same thing's happening in the schools. We went down last week to the Fort Worth School Board. They had a march, and then they had the school board meeting, and what we heard was absolutely insidious. I mean, there was a number of people there. How many people were there? And this was ridiculous. We had people up there talking about white fragility, talking about how we want to, teach these kids the idea that white racism is systemic through our society, and basically put everyone as victims, and to create a situation where no one can rise above it and believes that they have an equal opportunity in America to be able to stand up and actually, find the American dream on their own. And in fact, the only entity that can create that environment where they can succeed is the government. And that's what this is all about. And it's happening in corporate America. You saw Lockheed Martin is teaching people nothing less than the same material that we're talking about in the military and we're talking about in the schools. So this is going on, and this is one of the reasons that we're having to stand up right now. And unfortunately, a lot of this we're too late on. I mean, I don't know if we're going to fix the school boards this year, but the thing is at least we can save some of these school districts. And at least we can have a remnant of kids that have an opportunity to not be indoctrinated. And so that's what we're doing. Okay, so enough said about that. I just wanted to talk about this. This is appropriate. This is what's going on. It's happening in Decatur. We've got the Decatur superintendent that's on record as saying, well, I don't really support CRT, but then he goes on for 2 pages and talking about in a letter how he supports CRT. This is going on in Decatur. All right, so this isn't something that's only happened in urban districts. This is liberalism and woke ideology that has permeated every aspect of our society, and we've been blind to it because we said, well, why shouldn't we have some doctor from Dallas come and teach our kids? That sounds great, right? That's a terrible idea, because they're all liberals. But anyway, so we're gonna pass that real quick, and I wanna ask, is there any elected officials in the room? Okay. Whoa! Melanie, you are, I think, maybe our only second Wise County elected official in 6 months. You wanna stand? She's at Decatur ISD School Board. Do we have any? Yes, she is awesome. Yeah. Do we have any candidates for office that have declared that would like to come up and speak for at most 2 minutes? Okay. So with that said, what I want to do now is I want to Sam, next slide just real quick, just make sure I don't miss. Yeah. What I want to do is, we're going to do this a little differently than what I had written up here, because I was talking to Representative Slaton and Representative Cason, and they're going to come up here and talk together. And just a little bit about these two men. And a lot of you all, with me this session, were sitting there looking at all the votes and all the bills and all the journals, keeping up with what was going on as best we could. And the thing is both of these guys are freshmen, and they totally stood against the power of the legislature and of all these people and the entrenched establishment, and they voted their conscience, bill after bill after bill after bill. So, I gotta say, of all the people that have come up here at this meeting, these are the people I was like, oh, gosh, I'm really excited to meet these guys. These guys are, you could watch the videos. These guys People had people yelling at them, and they were just impervious. It was outstanding to witness. So we definitely need to pray for these guys. But come on up.
Age or beauty? No, I'm kidding. He gets to go first on both.
All right, I'll go first. I'm Jeff Cason, and I'm state rep in House District 92, which is Hurst, Euless, Bedford, a little bit of Arlington, and Grand Prairie. As you know, as Andy said, I'm a freshman, got elected this past session, and we just finished up our first freshman session. And it's really an honor to be here to speak with you all this evening. Usually nobody wants to hear anything I say, but hopefully tonight we'll say something worth listening to. And my sidekick and compadre in crime down there, we sat next to each other. I sat in Jonathan Stickland's old seat, and he sits right behind me. So we're right by the back mic, and we keep them on their toes. So that's a little bit about me. And okay, all right, just briefly. And I brought my roadshow book here. I filed 13 bills as a freshman, 2 resolutions, and I co-authored or joint authored over 100 bills. And I don't know if that was a mistake or not, because one of the things we learned being freshmen was that you get bills into the system, and then leadership has that carrot and stick that they use on you. And if you step out of line, then the progress of your bills are affected. The very first bill I filed was HB 1486, which is in-state tuition for illegals. I just sent a letter to Governor Abbott over the weekend and asked him to please put this on the special session. And as Andy said, right now we don't even know what's going to be on the special session. We're anticipating election integrity, bail reform, maybe 1 or 2 more items, but we don't know. It's a guessing game at this point. Again, in tax abatements for renewable energy, Miranda rights for parents of CPS investigations, Return Children to Safe Homes Act, protect gun owners' rights, informed consent for vaccines, live stream open meetings. I'll say this, one of the bills that did get passed, the live stream, I had to tag that on as an amendment to a Democrat's bill, Terry Canales, but it did get passed unanimously. CPS Accountability Act, In Corporate Welfare in Texas Act, Death Certificates for Aborted Babies Act, repeal the Franchise Tax Act, protect free speech on social media, expand telemedicine for disabled workers, and the resolutions were to give retired teachers back what they're owed from the Social Security that's been stolen from them. And then Right to Life constitutional amendment. Those are just a few of the things that I worked on in addition to the joint co-author. And basically one bill got passed, and that was the telemedicine bill because it was on local and consent. And it voted out to the Senate, where Kelly Hancock in the Senate let it die in his committee. He didn't give it a hearing. So we've got other ideas on how to get it through, because it's a very good bill for everybody, Democrats and Republicans alike. So that's a little bit about what I worked on. We're very busy, and it was a fight, as Andy said. You know, we were up against a big wave, and so we've learned a few things, and as we talk tonight, we'll kind of work off of each other, remind each other of things that did or didn't happen, and hopefully it'll be informative. So Bryan?
Thank you. So I'm Bryan Slaton, and I'm the state rep out in House District 2, which is Hunt, Hopkins, and Van Zandt counties, Greenville, Sulphur Springs, and Canton. And I like to claim I had more fun than anybody else in the Capitol this past session. I was able to fight for my values. Problem I've had with Republicans over the years is they just always play defense. The joke I make, you know, if you go into a bar, and no one admit you've ever been in a bar, but if you've ever been in a bar, there's a sign that says, free beer tomorrow. Well, sometimes I feel like the Republican motto is let's fight tomorrow. Let's fight the next election. And it drives me crazy because the left, they're aggressive, they're determined to pass their agenda, to implement their public policy into your life. And Republicans really don't seem to care. Now, I know you do, but I'm talking about elected officials. They don't seem to care. And so when I went down there, my mindset was God's given me 2 years. I'm going to make the most of this 2 years. And if, let's say I'm done, I'm not going to lay my head down at night and say, man, I wish I would have done more. That was my whole attitude, and it's still my attitude. So if I'm fortunate enough to win again, God's given me 2 years, and I'm going to give it all I got. So a couple of things I did at the very beginning. If you've been to Austin, you've seen the homeless situation and all the violence and crime and everything. So the mayor of the city is?
Mayor Adler.
Steve Adler. And I filed a bill to rename a portion of I-35 from 4th Street to 11th Street to the Steve Adler Public Restroom Highway. And I felt like it was appropriate. And I had an Austin news outlet ask me, said, well, okay, let's say your bill gets passed, and there's going to be a sign put up that says, Steve Adler Public Restroom Highway, then what? I went, it'd be accurate. And backfired on me a little bit. There's some Austinites who want me to run for mayor down there, and I'm not going to do that. And I filed abolish abortion. I also filed a resolution to ignore Roe versus Wade. I filed some bills protecting end-of-life visitation with clergy and family. Didn't pass those bills, but got 2 amendments on, and then someone took one of my bills and basically amended it onto another bill. So in three places in our law, someone's at the end of life, whether it's pandemic or not, they cannot keep clergy away from someone that's dying. So I was happy to fight on that. And I filed the bill to finish the Trump border wall and charge the federal government. So that died in committee. Early on, the committee chair told us he wouldn't give us a hearing because there was more important items. And it was crazy. I had Democrat county chairs, Democrat sheriffs, Democrat counties all along the border calling me. It was weird for a while because I had people in Austin loving me because I filed the Steve Adler Public Restroom Highway. I mean, they're like, Bryan, you bring your staff in, you're eating for free. You're the only elected official that cares about us. Because imagine having a business during a COVID shutdown, and then you've got homeless people outside your restaurant using the restroom, yelling at people that don't give them a donation. Imagine trying to put food on your table in all that. So I had Austinites that loved me, okay? And I was like, hey, you guys don't know my voting record. Let's slow down a little bit. And then Democrats down on the border, like, we have to secure our border. In early May, I went down to meet them at a conference, and they had told me they'd already blown their budget in body bags. In the 1st of May. Every county has budgets for everything. And we hadn't even got to the peak months of the border. So my bill was unimportant. A lot of people ignored that bill. And after session, Governor Abbott took it all up and is trying to implement it as through executive order. So while I applaud him for making an effort towards the wall, I'll give an example. We were happy that Donald Trump put in the Keystone Pipeline. But because one person put it in, how many people could get rid of it? And Biden did. Governor Abbott's moving to secure our border with a barrier fence. If he does it through executive order, who can get rid of it? There's a reason we should follow the legislative process and honor the Constitution and use the House and the Senate to present the legislation to the governor for him to sign. It is not his job to do everything. And so anyway, but that bill, like I say, it died during the session, but it's been revived, and Governor Abbott's totally ignored me and the whole thing. He's even doing the crowdfunding thing that I was doing. I will tell you all a secret. I'm working on some bills I'm going to file for the special session. I have not asked for permission for these, by the way. But one of them, because I had the crowdsourcing for the wall in my bill, we were going to do a committee substitute. Now, he's doing that as well. I'm filing a bill that says if you donate towards the wall, you can use that dollar for dollar to get property tax reduction to the county you live in. Think about it. In order for us to implement our policies that we agree with, we would have to pay more than the taxes we are paying. The Democrats would love that. Like, okay, if they want to build a wall and they got to pay more than the taxes they're already paying, awesome. What lesson is there taught there? No. Think about it. If you're frustrated with your property taxes, well, if we can get this bill passed, you can go down to the county tax office and you can say, here's my receipt, and none of your money goes to anything local. The state has to pick that up and cover what you would have paid, okay? Because there's no reason that we should have to pay extra out of pocket to implement our conservative policies when we have a Republican-controlled legislature. So anyway, I'm working on that and some other things. Yeah, I'll stop on. Huh?
Gender modification?
Yeah, I didn't file a bill to stop gender modification of children. Before session started, I talked to the two guys that were, and I said, if you two guys will file a bill that Jeff Younger approves of, I won't file one, but I will fight for your bill as if it was my own. And they filed bills that he approved of, and so I presented 7 or 8 amendments during session to protect children from gender modification, and we only got 1 or 2 votes on it. I can't believe this is a problem, and I can't believe Republicans won't do anything to fix it. So in the 90s, Democrats were in charge. There's a thing called electroshock therapy, okay? Electroshock, invented by the Russians to perform on their citizens who just didn't quite get it. You know what I mean? The bad communists. They just couldn't wrap their brain about being a good communist. So they tortured citizens using electroshock therapies. Psychology picked that up and used it as therapy, and they were doing it on children. And in the 90s, the Democrats passed a bill banning electroshock therapy on children 16 and under. And here we are in 2021, Republicans claiming everything they do about how they care about kids, they care about family, they care about Christian values, and we did nothing to stop kids going through this barbaric and permanent practice of gender modification. It's absolutely shameful. And we as Republicans should be ashamed. And there is no excuse, and I'm blaming myself in that. Even though I was fighting, leading the charge, I had some people pretty mad at me. I'll tell one quick story and then we'll go to opening day, that vote. So I had this one bill, this one amendment we were going to vote on, and they were begging me to pull it down. And they said, Bryan, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull your amendment down, and we're going to make you the #1 joint author on somebody's bill. I was like, I don't want that. And they're like, no, and they're like offering all, they're like, oh, no, we're going to make you the #1. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And finally I said, you guys don't understand me. I said, let me tell you what I want. Because they said, Bryan, if you force a vote on this and we don't have the votes, you're going to kill Matt Krause's bill. And then we're not going to be able to save kids, and it's going to be all your fault. And we're going to tell everybody that it was your fault because you were too boneheaded to be reasonable and negotiate. And I said, you can say what you want, but that ain't true. And I said, let me tell you guys what I want. I want us to vote on this amendment, and I want it to pass. I want to vote on Matt Krause's bill, and I want it to pass. And I want us to have a party that we celebrated kids being saved from this practice. And I want every one of you to get a pat on the back for everything you did to stop it, and I don't want you to invite me to the party. That's what I want. And they looked at me like a cow looking at a new gate. And they didn't know what to do because I didn't want the things they wanted. I was like, I really don't care. You know, take my name off everything. I don't give a crap. Let's save kids from this and move on. And y'all get the credit. I'm fine with that. And anyway, so that was one of the instances, and they were pretty ticked. And we took the vote on that amendment, and we failed. We didn't get it passed. So that one member was yelling at me from across the House floor, and I yelled, well, I'm coming over there so you can tell me to my face. So I went over there, and apparently some of this may not be approved or appropriate, but I was like, no, if you're going to yell at me, you're going to do it right in my face. And pardon my language. Trust me, I was quoting them, the language is worse, but they were trying to blame me because it failed. And I said, hey, it's not my fault. The Republicans don't have the balls to do the right thing. You're not blaming me for this. And then the conversation was pretty much over. So anyway, I was in the fight, tried to be. I had fun. I was able to fight for my values, my Christian values. And I had a ball. I had a lot of people mad at me. I had a lot of people cussing at me. But I don't know, just how God made me. I had fun. So why don't you go to opening day? So we were given we went through freshman orientation, and we both lost the handbook. You want to tell them about the first vote?
There's so much now that I want to say, and it's just jumbled up. One point I want to make, and Bryan, we went through a lot together. But the one point I want to make tonight that all of you need to understand is not one single thing happens in that building that leadership doesn't allow or want to happen. Period. End of subject. Is that right? We both went down there, and we had big grandiose plans and ideas, thinking, hey, we're going to get some things accomplished.
Well, I'll just say, at the beginning of the session, I had a memorial service for all my bills. I knew they were all dead. But go ahead. He had different.
Well, he felt like it was DOA, but at the end, they all looked at he was a big teddy bear, and they loved him. But really, I think Bryan and I can both say, from the standpoint of why we were down there, my story is a little bit different. I ran for this seat 10 years ago, before Jonathan Stickland. And I primaried a guy named Todd Smith, who was a 14-year incumbent. And Stephanie Click, who's now in the House, was the chair of the Tarrant County GOP at the time, and she recruited me as I was fresh off of city council in Bedford. And at that point in time, I was like, sure, I'll do it. I didn't put it to prayer. I didn't, and that was just so far the opposite direction of what I would normally do. But I did it. It was one of the hardest things, besides burying my father and my mother, that I've ever done. And so we raised about $98,000, and we came away with 42% of the vote, and I swore I'd never do it again. This time, I prayed hard about it. And I said no 3 times to the people that twisted my arm I didn't know arms could be twisted in that many directions. But my wife and I finally prayed about this together, and she actually cracked before I did. And she came to me and said, hey, you're retiring, we're still healthy. And I'm thinking, the Lord doesn't call one without calling you both, whether it's in ministry, whatever. And I firmly believe that. So we moved forward, and I told everybody, if God wants me in Austin, I'll be in Austin. And I think Bryan probably felt the same way. And sure enough, the Lord put us there. So we've got a lot of work to do. And the very first day, or the very first vote, was an interesting experience, I think, for both of us, because they took us both back to the woodshed, which is the speaker's office.
So Jeff let him know he was going to vote no against the speaker who didn't have an opponent.
Somebody asked me, I abhor lying, okay? I really do. And I'm not going to lie. They asked me, what are you going to do?
And I saw them they were working him over in the back. I was like, oh, Jeff, why didn't you tell that? And then how would they ask? Like, you're not going to do this by yourself. He goes, oh no, Slaton's with me. So then we get escorted to the back.
They escorted us back.
We walked back there to get yelled and cussed at for a while.
And literally yelled and cussed at.
Yeah. And another moment back there, they were working him over more than me, and he just stood strong. He was like, no, I'm honoring my voters. They're tired of this. Why are Democrats selecting our speaker? At one point, they were like, talking about, who cares what, you got elected because you worked hard, and used some phrases there. You got elected because you worked hard. And I said, well, if you want to know the truth about me, I mean, I don't know if you know my story. I ran 3 times. I ran 3 times against the same guy. Twice I lost. The last time I got him in a runoff and won. Okay? It wasn't easy. It was no calf rope. Okay? And so I told him, I said, well, I worked hard every time. So I don't know what you're talking about. It's not like I worked harder this time than the other times. I worked hard every time. The only reason I won is because God changed people's hearts. That's all I know. And they, once again, stared at me like a cow looking at a new gate. I mean, you start talking about morals, your faith in God, and your determination to do the right thing, they're just like, what? Wait, what? It's really funny. That's happened a lot. And you got a question? We're going to take some.
Have you guys been keeping track of the bills that are passed? How many are offered by Republicans?
Oh, I haven't been. I got back from
Say that
session.
again, how many are what?
Of the bills that are passed, how many are offered by Democrats? While the Republicans have majority, versus how many are offered by
You have?
I was going to talk about that. Now that you mentioned it, you know, everyone has priorities. And of course, we're in orientation, and Bryan and I are sitting next to each other, and the speaker Phelan comes in before the speaker and kind of said, hey, you know, if you're here to start trouble, you know, you're in the wrong place, and you might as well leave now. And
it'd been weird because I'd have to come back in the room and get my wife.
And
so I didn't leave.
And so what Bryan and I did, we looked at each other like, is he talking to us? And
I had to come back and get my wife. It'd have been really weird.
Anyway, everyone had priorities. The lieutenant governor had 31 priorities. Governor Abbott had 5 or 6 priorities. The RPT had 8 or 9 priorities. Everyone had priorities. It's like a big cookie jar. I've had a number of people ask me, why didn't you file a bill for this? Why didn't you file a bill for that? Well, as freshmen, we couldn't file bills until after we were elected, okay? And we had to send our drafts and what we wanted to do to Ledge Council, where a bunch of attorneys and worker bees are working to craft it into suitable language. And so it was a process, and the bills that we did file, they came back in March and April timeframe, and you know we're racing against the clock to get them referred, get hearings, you know. And again, out of 13 bills, I had 3 bills. 2 went to regular calendars, 1 went to local and consent. So I only got 3 bills heard. And if you make them mad, like Bryan and I did, then your bills are pushed to the end of the line. And Matt Krause filed, what was it, $13.99?
I thought each of my bills only needed 1 toe tag. Apparently, they put multiple toe tags on all of mine.
And there were bullseyes on both of our backs, but I think the bullseye was bigger on his. And so people ask, why didn't you file this or why didn't you file that in line with the RPD priorities? Or because a lot of them had already been filed. So there's a lot of redundancy going on. Even bills we think of that we file for drafts, they come back and they say, hey, someone else has already done that, or someone else in the Senate's already got that going. So there's a lot of redundancy, and over 5,000 bills were passed, and I think are filed, and around 1,200, which is not as much as normal, was literally voted on. So, but going back to the first day, again, literally, we're cussed at, we're called names, we're threatened, and it's like, okay, you know. I think the frustration level was pretty high because they really couldn't intimidate Bryan and me. You know, we just wouldn't fold like a cheap suit. There were some good things that happened in that chamber, and I've got them in here, but they're like minor things compared to the major things that all of the SREC and all of the delegates and everybody in the party worked so hard on and spent so many hours on developing, called the platform. And honestly, the rift between our chair, our state chair, and leadership, you know, a definite divide.
So Republicans have a big problem everywhere. We have no unity, no unity. So when we started the session, coronavirus was going on. When you walked in, you were under the House Preservation Board into the Capitol. You go into the House chamber or the House committee room, you're under the House rules. And then you go in the Senate, you're under the Senate rules. And you'd think 3 different parties were in control of the Capitol because there was no consistency with the rules of even what to do with the COVID stuff, right? I mean, really, we're the same party. We could do this, but no. It's crazy. And then we got, our state party is at odds with a lot of the members. They're upset. I mean, the state party, the delegates, is saying, hey, we want to pass these items. We're the ones that helped get you elected. And then there's a lot of animosity in the Capitol towards the grassroots. I mean, you mentioned the word grassroots, they turn on you.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. Trust me.
Before session started, I used that word at a caucus meeting and I got barked at. They didn't even have the decency to walk up to the mic and bark at me. They just barked at me from their seat. And I was like, I thought we care about our voters, thought we care about our platform. And, all of them seem to be worried about what the Democrats want to do when they get in charge. And but whenever we're down there, there's not a sense of urgency is one thing I'll say. And there's no unity. That's just a big problem. But yeah, so we wind up both red lighting the speaker that didn't have an opponent. I don't know if that's ever been done.
It's historic.
And then we go to the rules debate, and he has a rule, and again, everybody's rules amendments got voted down basically. But I had an amendment that said only Republicans could be chairman. The rule actually said the speaker can only appoint those that are in the majority party. So if the Democrats took over Texas, Democrats would have chairmanships, just like in D.C. And I filed that amendment. I got 5 Republicans vote with me, and then I filed one that said protecting our main committees. We got up to maybe 17, really making some headway. And then I filed an amendment that said that we were going to prioritize a vote on abolish abortion. Before, we cannot name a road or bridge until we vote on abolish abortion. I didn't say we had to pass it. I'm not that optimistic about Republicans. I just said, let's just have a vote on it. And it was actually kind of remarkable. We got 46. We got 46 Republicans and got a Democrat. I claim it's bipartisan. And so that was a big step for a freshman third day voted against. And a lot of this is loyalty votes. A lot of votes are loyalty. They're trying to stay loyal to the speaker and the leadership team, to the governor, all that. And so the things I was doing was not showing loyalty, so they were pretty upset at me. They were pretty mad at me. But that wasn't my goal. My goal is to advance our agenda. We've had control for 20 years. When are we going to do something? When are people going to know we're here? I mean, when we're done, is anybody going to know Republicans were in charge in Texas? I remember there was a bill by, I don't even remember who, and it was about a tax on e-cigarettes. And they're like, Slaton, let me guess, you're against it. Well, yeah, I'm against it. Why? You like e-cigarettes? I was like, no. There's got to be, as Republicans, there's got to be at least one tax we're against. Yeah, I mean, is that something good we can tax? Okay, yeah, we can have that debate. But let's start saying no to things before we start getting picky and choosy on what's a good tax to have let's just actually take a stand on something. And of course, that failed. But I was like, no, I'm voting against it. I'm sick and tired. Does anybody know we're here? 50 years from now, anybody looks back on history, were Republicans even in charge? And I'm going to say maybe not. I don't know if people would notice that. Very frustrating. So anyway, we go through the rules debate, then I don't remember what else during the session. We just got yelled at a lot.
This is true.
Yeah.
Regarding the abortion thing, you have to know how our representative team votes.
I don't. I will tell you this, there was one day on one of the amendments I had about protecting kids from gender modification. So it's really just chain events. I'm human. I'm nothing special. I'm just human, okay? And so don't let anybody fool you. Just because they're in office, they're nothing special. I'm just Bryan. And you can call me Bryan. Don't call me by state rep, whatever. Just call me Bryan. And I had a client, I had some clients leave me. The cancel culture, well, they try to do that to you in your business. Anyway, so that was going on, and my little boy wanted to play that night. But I couldn't play with them because I'm answering these mean emails from clients that were trying to leave. And because I took a stand, apparently I upset them. And it's okay, they were huge liberals, so what do? I'm not going to give up my desire for freedom and liberty to save a couple clients. We'll figure it out. And I was upset I couldn't play with my boy. So I go into the Capitol the next morning. I was a little sad because he wanted to play, and I had to tell him no. And I was just kind of sad. I didn't want to be a jerk dad, you know. And so I was a little emotional. I got on the house floor, and somebody told me I was disgusting because of my fight to protect kids from gender modification. And I was just kind of like all worked up. And I realized what I was up against was just pure evil. We don't have enough people that really care about the issue to save children from going this. So it's just a lot going on in just a short amount of time. And I was worked up, and I'm human. And anyway, I got a little emotional. I don't know if y'all saw that. I actually cried on the mic. I wish I didn't do that. But anyway, I did. And but after that day, I had a meeting with Phil King, and he prayed with me, and he supported me. I don't know about that vote, but that day, I mean, he was super, super kind to me. There's some rough days down there because you're not just fighting on the policy that you care about. You're not just fighting on the things you care about and you're passionate about. You got real life, real world stuff going on too that you got to deal with. And you can't let that affect whether you fight, right? I mean, that's what was happening to me throughout session. It's like, hey, if this is going on or that's going on, well, you know, my head's not really in it. What do? I just went ahead and swung anyways. And I don't regret it. I probably could have done a few things better here and there. But that's the tough part about it, is a lot going on. But sorry to tell you, but that's my main interaction with him was that day. And like I say, I appreciate him praying with me and being supportive of me in that fight. But that rules debate, it was rough, not very successful, but I was celebrating going from 5 to 17 to 46. I saw that as a big win. And in their eyes, that was not. Because, okay, so like when you and your friends get together, you have your own little inside jokes that no one knows. Okay, so one thing the House loves is making fun of people that get in the Century Club. And you know what the Century Club is? It means 100 people vote against your bill or amendment. Well, that happened to me a lot. And so like, hey, way to go, you made the Century Club again. I was like, yeah. I mean, I didn't care. They cared about that. But I didn't. I didn't care. I don't care. The things that make them happy doesn't matter to me. And so, anyway.
Well, you know, when you asked about Phil, I've known Phil a long time, and he was very supportive of me as well, and Bryan. And we don't want to leave you with the impression that everybody in the chamber was screaming and cussing at us every day of the week. That wasn't the case. But there's a steady drip, drip, constant pressure that's put on you as a rep. And as a freshman, it's intensified, threefold, fivefold, tenfold. They know you're impressionable, they know you're inexperienced, and they know they can work you and play you. They'll make promises. Bryan talks about the gender modification and protecting children. The governor's, one of his centerpiece bills, the broadband bill, HB 5. I filed an amendment to HB 5 that basically said we are going to put priority on those providers that will provide their service with a porn block filter turned on rather than off. So you have to opt in versus out of the service.
This was one of the most important amendments of the session, and the Senate killed it.
Well,
and it's the idea of a hotel room having dirty movies just pumping into the TV, and you just having to change the channel versus having to go to the front desk and turn it on. So everything we deal with kids, how they treat, you know, in dating, everything, we could have, with his amendment, we could have helped stop pumping this stuff into everyone's home in Texas.
Let me tell you
It
how
would have been amazing. Go ahead.
Senator Robert Nichols stripped it out in the Senate. So Trent Ashby, who was carrying the bill, when the bill came back from the Senate for our acceptance in the House, Trent refused it and pushed it back to conference. my hope really was that it would somehow be left in conference. And it ended up not being left in conference. And so one of the concession prizes that they offered to me was, you're really going to like this. What we got was, we're going to do a study on the impact of pornography. And so I got up and spoke at length against the bill when it came up for final passage. I was the only one to speak against it. And basically, when I filed that amendment in the House the first time, all the Republicans less one and 8 or 9 Democrats, which totaled 91 people, voted for the amendment. When the bill came out of conference and back to the House, the vote ended up being, I think it was 12 or 15 people voted with me against the bill, and the rest voted for it. You're constantly scratching your head about priorities and where their values and you know, items of importance are. Because if you try and use logic, it just doesn't work. And the one thing I want to tell you before we maybe take some questions is there's a very delicate balance of power in that chamber. You've got the Republican side of the aisle. And there's several factions on the Republican side. There's the left, there's the middle, there's the right. And the Democrat side, it's the same way, okay? And so in the beginning, Bryan and I attended some meetings before we were sworn in concerning the speaker and that election. And I just couldn't get my head around the fact that, you know, we're going to have a speaker that's going to appoint Democrats to be chairs of important committees that will kill our priority legislation. Okay, I could not get my head around that. But the one thing I didn't know that I do know now is that there were no less than 5 or 6 people that threw their name in the hat on the Republican side for speaker, Dave Phelan being one of them. And so there was a lot of wheeling and dealing going on, and Speaker Phelan couldn't have been elected without Democrat support, because you couldn't get 76 or more Republicans to get on the same page and elect our guy or girl. You can't do it. And go ahead.
Well, so one thing that happened at the beginning, we were talking to the Republican caucus, and they're like, hey, we got to come up with our priorities. And I'm like, well, why don't we just keep it simple and use the Republican Party priorities? Once again, Cal looking at a new gate. Okay. And I'm like, well, I mean, you're all complaining about COVID, and we can't get together, and people are afraid, and then we can't get along, because, I mean, the Republicans hated each other. When I was at some of the first meetings, I stood up and I said, you know what it's like being a Republican in the Republican caucus, brand new? I feel like I've been adopted into a family where the mother and father hate one another, and the more I'm just kind to one, the other one hates me more. And they're like, wow, you really got a good grasp of what's going on around here. I was like, it ain't hard to figure out. And I mean, it's a mess, an absolute mess. We're trying to save our republic. We're trying to save Texas. And we got Republicans, and that's why I guess one thing, who asked about a vote, I didn't keep up with who voted with me on things, because all I did was I fought hard towards the policy, principled policy stand. And then I was as kind as I could be to everyone. Even after they cussed me, hollered at me,
That's right.
I was just as nice as I could be, and it's just a little trick my granddad taught me. Yeah, so.
Well, that's the one thing that got us through.
The meaner they are to you, the happier you should be when you see them.
The nicer you be to them, the more frustrating it becomes for them. So, you know, Bryan and I put up with a lot. We don't want to make it sound like it's just a building full of bad people. But it's about policy. It's about good conservative.
We don't have leadership. That's
policy.
our biggest problem. We have a Republican caucus, Republican Party, we got elected Republicans, and then we don't have leadership. We don't have a desire to move towards the same goal. We don't.
One of the things that was said in a meeting by one of the members was he stood up and he said, you know the problem? The problem is that when Democrats get elected, they assume power. When Republicans get elected, we assume office. Okay? And we don't use the power and the authority and the ability that we've got to forward the legislation, okay? I'll go back to the balance of power. Lots of deals were cut, lots of promises were made. When that quorum was busted the night before May 31st, it was busted because the Democrats essentially were given permission to leave when Speaker Phelan told them that he would not make the call.
Yeah, and there was days we got steamrolled on the floor, and we couldn't get Republicans to unite. There were some maneuvers we could do, getting 25 signatures, and we'd get close to 25, and then people would start hearing about all this, and then they'd start working on those people and pulling them off. And the Democrats were united at times. They had their rift between their LGBTQ caucus and the others, because that was more the radical caucus. And that hadn't, I was told that hadn't happened a lot. The Democrats were really unified in the past. This session, they were still unified at times, but they had their moments. They had their rifts. We only had rifts. Only had rifts is the way I would say it. And, but let's take a couple questions. I don't know how much time we got for questions real quick before we start.
Here.
We good for like, okay, I don't want to be like, hey, we got time for one.
Andy, we promised you we keep it under 3 hours.
He told us we had to go cut his grass when we leave here too. Andy offered us, y'all come speak and come cut my grass, so we got to leave before dark.
This gentleman here, you had your hand.
In the military, whenever we have a situation like this, we go back and do an after action review. What is it that we could have done better? Based on the fact y'all walk into the situation and obviously you have a bunch of fun, what would you go back to now, go into the next session and figure out how would you solve the problem?
Different leaders. I mean, different leaders that are unified and determined to get things done. Too many people were on too many different pages down there, okay? And again, I had my staff put together a comprehensive list of the bills, the good things, or the things that did pass, the things that didn't pass as it related to election integrity and taxpayer-funded lobbying and all of the RPT priorities. There were some lesser bills that were passed. I don't want to give, and I don't know about Bryan, but I don't want to give the impression that nothing good happened. There were some things that happened that were good in this session, okay? Some things that are debatable, the heartbeat bill, I mean, you know, Bryan and I talked about that earlier. If the doctor says, well, hey, I didn't detect a heartbeat.
There's no audio of the heartbeat bill. There's no audio or video proof whether they heard or did not hear a heartbeat.
Right.
It's the fox guarding the hen house.
Exactly.
And I got chewed out for asking those questions at the back mic to bring attention to Texans that this may not be the best thing we've ever seen. Because the only accountability you have on this is a person who makes money killing babies telling you whether they heard a heartbeat or not.
Some of the
And
things
I was yelled at, and what was it? It was we'll clean it up. It was the crappiest thing they had ever seen happen on the House floor. But then, whenever the Democrats were accusing all the Republicans of being racist, these Republicans just stayed in their seat and didn't do anything. But of course, they were mad at me for asking questions about the heartbeat bill.
we did not have, in my opinion, and as Bryan said earlier, we both sat there, sometimes just feeling like we're getting steamrolled. It's like, coach, you know,
And then,
send us in. Nobody would do, it seemed like nobody would lift a finger, and the Democrats, they were chubbing, they were calling points of order, they were doing everything. They were burning up the clock.
And so I saw what was happening. We had a few things pass, and they started to talk. It's the most conservative session ever. And they're like, oh, that day, that was the most conservative 24 hours ever.
This is the most conservative meeting we've ever been in.
So I started walking around the House floor, and as I'd shake people's hand, I'm like, hey, good to meet you. Man, that was the most conservative handshake ever. And at one point, I was bragging about taking the most conservative leak in the restroom. You know. They didn't appreciate me. I know you may think that's childish. That's fine. It probably is. But I was mocking just how ridiculous it is that we have 8 items. And the way I look at it, if you are a boss or a parent and you give your kids or your employees, say, I want you to do these 8 things, and they do 2 of them. Are you happy with that? And that's what we did. Yeah. I mean, we're part of the Texas House. And what we gave you is you said, we want these 8 things, and we're like, here's 2-ish.
Let me say this.
and have fun. Y'all, we're amazing. Name a bridge after us.
Well, let me say this. I spent almost 50 years in corporate America and corporate Europe. We would gavel in at 10 a.m. We were supposed to gavel in at 10 a.m. We'd be there. And as the session went on, fewer and fewer people would show up at 10 o'clock. They'd start coming in at 10:15, at 10:30, at 10:40, okay? And the speaker would come in around 10:20, 10:30, a few times 10:35, 10:40. I kept track. And so if you stop and you think there's 140 days in session, and if we're 30 minutes late getting started every day, do the math. That's 70 hours of wasted time, or almost 2 full work weeks that we wasted, okay, on not doing the people's business.
Yeah, and I objected 3 times to leaving early. And I got chewed out over that one too.
Yeah, I mean, you do sensible stuff.
I was like, no, let's keep working, because it was the banning gender modification. It was still on the docket. Now they already buried it so far it would probably die. But I was like, hey, let's give it every chance we got, because if they wanted to bring it up, they could. And like you said, nothing happens that they don't want, and it didn't. But and they were upset, because you're not supposed to vote against a speaker that doesn't have an opponent. You're not supposed to object to adjourning. You're not. So there's so many things, and that's why I said we lost the manual that we were given at freshman orientation. And hand.
Sitting here thinking, I appreciate the position that you're taking, coming here and sharing the areas that you supported and shot down. Will you go back with a new game plan on how to handle problems like this in the future?
Yes.
You feel like we'll be benefit?
Yes. I mean, I'm always, I was always trying something different, like Jeff. And he's like,
well, I don't want to tip my hand.
Yeah, I'm not going to say my thoughts exactly, but yeah, I'm in the fight.
I'm not going to.
We have to win. We have to find a way to win.
That's right, and Bryan and I are going to stick.
You next.
I just have a follow-up with you on, you said the leadership. You said new leadership is the key to getting some things happening. Can you specify what you mean by that? And maybe obviously Governor Abbott, I mean.
Well, no, when I, again, I'm not specifically referring. I'm thinking in the context of the House.
Correct.
Okay, the governor's race is already unfolding. We see who the candidates are. I'm waiting for Matthew McConaughey to throw his hat in the ring. All right. And so I'm talking about in the House, specifically the Republican caucus. When I went down there during my campaign, all of the freshman candidates got lots of money from the House Republican caucus. How much money do you think I got? Not one nickel, not one cent. But I went down there and I gave them my $2,000 membership dues, and I joined the House Republican caucus. But when I look at leadership of the House Republican caucus, voting, it seemed like with Democrats more than with Republicans, that concerned me.
Yeah, and I have 2 things. Here's what we need. We need a House of Representatives that respects the constitutional role they have in Texas to pass legislation and be its own body and not be the water boy for whoever's in the governor's office. 1.
Amen.
2, we need a leader in the House that, like Newt Gingrich did. He had a contract with America, and this is what I want to do. And they got things passed with a Democrat president in the late 90s. Leadership is everything. And it's going to take someone that encourages and challenges the House to stand up for itself and take pride in what it is. Because just because you're liked by the governor, and because the House and the governor have a great relationship on paper, right? But what they're doing to our state is not healthy. The Texas House of Representatives has to stand up for itself. And like I said, we've got to have someone being a speaker that is saying, this is what we're going to do for you. We're actually going to address property tax relief. We are going to address the border. Stand up for Texas and make sure we secure our border while the cartels are, it's very dangerous what's going on. And it's going to bankrupt a bunch of counties and us. We're all paying for it. But anyway, yes, sir, your question.
My name is Art, and the question I have is, does the legislative body understand the use of a quorum? That you don't have to have 100% of the assembly here to vote on something. And if not, why aren't you using the quorum 51% to get some of these items back?
In the Texas House, quorum is 2/3. And that's what in their rules, it's 2/3. Now, a couple of other things. Whenever we first started, I want to explain House rules, so it's 2/3, and they make the rules to use them or not use them, right? Let them hurt them or help them. In the 90s, whenever the Democrats had gerrymandered to where the state of Texas had been voting for Republican presidential candidates, but they didn't have control of the House or Senate because the maps were gerrymandered. They made a deal with the Republicans to give them more and more chairmanships. So two things happened in 93. They gave more and more chairmanships to Republicans, and they changed the calendar's rule day to a bill that goes into calendars. It was, if it's in there 7 days and nothing happens to it, it automatically gets moved to a House calendar. In 93, they changed it to 30 days. And that's where they put in a bottleneck. So 2/3 allows a small group of people to bust quorum and keep us from voting. And a bill can get delayed and dragged and delayed, and then they send it to calendars, and then it just has to sit there for 30 days and it's dead. And so there's a lot of things in our House rules that they have over the years, over the decades, to where if they want something to die, it will die.
And one of the things, in the rules debate on the second day of session, Bryan and I, we offered amendments, and they shot them all down for the most part. They shot others down as well. And basically, the small group of people that are controlling the House, they control the rules. They control the rules debate and what will or won't pass.
Can you put their names up on a website?
Loyalty votes. I mean, you can see it. Look at the loyalty votes. They're voting. They're voting their loyalty to the speaker. Basically, is what I could tell. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sure. I mean, 13 states have already had it overturned. And while it seems like a good strategy, like, hey, anybody can file suit against an abortion doctor, the problem is who is going to, what evidence are you going to have that they did or didn't hear? Because what I brought up, all it is up to their word, an abortion doctor's word, whether they heard a heartbeat or not. That's why I filed Abolish Abortion, to protect, give a child in the womb some same protections under the law, the 14th Amendment, as any other human. We are created in God's image, not after birth. We are created in God's image at conception. And we should treat, I mean, think about what we're doing, and I mentioned people about this. So you got the paradigm of authority through history in the Bible. You got God, King, people. But with the Declaration of Independence, it became God, people, government. We give the government the authority it has over us. And what I will tell you is the things that happened in other civilizations with a king, a dictator, some tyrant, a lot of that person has to answer to God for what they did to the people. We in America, we are responsible for what is happening to children in our country and in our state. Abortion, gender modification of children. Yeah, this is why we are here at this meeting. This is why we are active. That's why we should all be looking to run for office wherever it is. You should be praying, where does God want you to be? Where does God want you to serve? And you need to get involved, because the left, they are active and they are trying to destroy our Christian values 100%. And one thing, we have to put forth the effort. When I would fight on an amendment, they'd say, Bryan, you're going to kill the bill because you're fighting too hard. Well, only in the Texas legislature does hard work as a detriment towards your goal, right? I mean, if you want to garden, if you want to garden, you got to go plant it and work it. You want to build a small business, you got to work it. You want to have kids that love the Lord and obey their parents, you got to work it. Everything you do in life, you have to work at. But in the legislature, they want you to believe that if you work, you kill conservative initiatives. And they yell, holler, and cuss at you. And it's fine. They can do it all they want. Our job is to be obedient. I'm a Christian. My job is to be obedient. My job isn't to, I ran 3 times, lost twice. God didn't call me to run and win. God called me to run. I did. I put myself out there. I lost. Oh well, what do you want from me next, God? That's got to be our attitude with everything we do.
That's right. Let's take another question.
Tagging on to that, I want to know, so all of us here have been following, what's going on in the legislature. We tune in one week. I definitely tuned in, watched the live streams, all of that. And it was incredible to see some of the bills that were put out there, which ones were passed, which ones weren't, and the conversations that we had ad nauseum, like on repeat sometimes. And it's like, was nobody listening the first time around? So my question is, how do we here at home, and first of all, thank you guys both for serving, for running, for staying true to your values, and for staying true to your convictions. That's hard under pressure. And so how do we help support you? Do we send tips streets to the other staffers that have been helping you? Do we send tips streets to your staffers?
No.
Like, what do we do?
That's a great question. I'd like to address that. What you can do, because again, we're not up here to, boo-hoo and be whiny reps, because, the pressure is so great. There's one thing that politicians respond to more than anything. You know what that is? Pressure. We can't do this alone. That's why I thought July 5th, okay. I'm going to be here. And the crowd, this is really, I know it's pumping him up, it's pumping me up to see y'all here. We can't do it without you. One of the things that I had in the forefront of my mind all the time when these people would come up and yell at me and cuss at me and call me names and accusing me of being a terrorist, running around throwing bombs, trying to burn that chamber.
Hamas used parliamentary procedure in Robert's
and
Rules of Order.
this is true. As the Lord is my witness, those words I just spoke are true. I had one person come up and stick their cell phone in my face. Is this who put you up to this? Is this who put you up to it? And it was an activist. It made a post on neo-racism. And, oh man, I know him, but I haven't talked to him in like 12 months. So, we're living rent-free in some of their heads, but we can't do this without you. And every day, in the forefront of my mind, my thought was, these people can't vote for me. I work, I'm employed, and I serve the people of House District 92, just like he serves the people of House District 2. They are our employers, they are our bosses, our managers, and I tell people on the campaign trail, I'm your sales rep. The last 36 of my 48-year career, I was in sales and marketing. And I worked globally. I traveled the world, and I worked with many different cultures. I worked for a German company the last 7 years and a Swedish company the very final 2 years. And I've dealt with a lot of different people. And I tell people, I'm your sales rep, okay? My job is to listen to you, listen to your needs, your wants, what you think you need, for the factory in Austin to produce. And it's my job to go back to the plant and get the factory to produce what you want and need. Easier said than done, as we both can attest to now. Going forward, we'll change up our method of operation. This was a learning experience. It was unlike any session before, and everybody down there was saying that. With COVID and not being able to social distance and not being able to meet or Zoom and so forth. You all know what we've gone through. But as we move forward, Bryan and I both have an idea of not only how we can work together, but the things we need to do as well as individually.
And I'll take it, hold on.
The pressure, contact, emails, phone calls, come down. I was in criminal jurisprudence and county affairs. In our crim juror meetings, there was one day we came in at 1, we gavelled out at 2, went to the floor, gavelled out at 3, came back. made some votes in county fair at 4 o'clock. I'm back in Cringer, all the way around from 4 p.m. to midnight, all the way around to 6:30 the next morning. We're sitting there listening to people come down and testify. That's what we need. We don't need you all to be down there, but phone calls, emails, constant pressure on areas that need to
And
happen.
if I can, one, with everything going on in our society, I mean, I'll give this quick example. I was a youth and family minister for a while. I was at seminary, and at one point, I'll age myself. I graduated high school in '96, and at that time, people were worried about The Simpsons, right? Remember, church, you don't need to let your kids watch The Simpsons. But when I was later on as a youth minister, there was a book that came out called The Gospel According to The Simpsons. I was like, okay, what is this about? Started talking to a guy. You know what it is? It's talking about the decay of the morality in our country, where in the 90s, you do not need to watch that. But fast forward to 2008, 2010, The Simpsons is the most wholesome thing on television. A family unit, they're not divorced, and there's not an LGBTQ person in that family unit. And I mean, it's actually a wonderful point the author made, that it is actually now one of the most conservative family units you'll see on TV. It's absolutely crazy what's happened. So I say that to tell you, one, as Christians, we have to be praying and seeking God's face to change our country and change people's hearts first. We have to do that. And then you seek to do everything God wants you to do in your life. And in that, you have to realize we have to be involved in our Christian life, but we also have to be involved in our politics. Because we, in this country, we the people, we are responsible for the outcome. We are responsible for what's happening to our society, okay? So what I'm going to tell you is you have to seek God's face. You have to figure out what God wants you to do and do it, right? You just have to take a swing. You have to do whatever He's calling you to. If you belong to a church, I've actually got to preach at a church last Sunday. I said, y'all need to make sure every one of your church members, like at least one or two, are at a meeting, school board, county, city, and you need to make sure you're putting forth candidates. And you have to, when I talk about pressure a little different, continue to grow your network of people. And you help control votes. You help control who people support. Then you have pressure also. But I can tell you, I ran against the incumbent 3 times, and people love voting for the same person. We hate change, and that's not odd. I mean, if at work, church, if something new's put in, people throw a fit, and that's basically what happens in the ballot box, and it's frustrating. But I don't know the answer. But I know our country and our state's in such a bad spot. We need revival, and we need God to help pull us out of this mess. So I don't have an exact, this is what we need to do, but you've got to be seeking His face for what God wants you to do with your life. That's the only way we can stop what's happening in our country.
Let me add on one other thing. One of the most incredible things, one day brought me to tears. A group of people came in, and they're mighty prayer warriors that traverse the halls of that building. And these people showed up, and I didn't know them. And I literally broke down crying because I was so humbled that these people who I don't even know, and I believe in the power of prayer. Believe you me, I do. But I didn't know these folks from Adam. And they showed up, and they've been back several times since. During the campaign, I had people come up to me, and I'm in the parking lot of the Bedford Library, and they came up, and they said, "You don't know me, but the Lord has impressed upon me to stop and pray for you and with you." That happened no less than 3 or 4 times during the general, and one of those times was my pastor's aunt. And so, Brian's absolutely right. I get all excited and, kick him in the shin, kick him in the knee. Well, the most important thing is to seek God's will, because that's why I feel like I'm down there. I think that's why he feels like he's down there. I didn't want to do this. You know, I have handlers and people say, don't tell people that, don't say that. I mean, this takes a lot of work, okay? And we're not down there for the $600 a month paycheck.
And I was a youth, as I mentioned, I was a youth minister. And somebody said, well, Bryan, what does being a youth minister have to do with preparing you to be in the legislature? Well, there's some people who never figured out their insecurities as a child.
Well, it's the
and it's
13th
playing
grade.
itself out in front of us. I'm very sad to say that. So you need to have some resolve in who you are, who God made you to be, and what God wants you to do, and you follow it, and who cares what anyone says or think. That's what you have to do. And yes, ma'am.
Okay, y'all are ranked really high as far as your conservative ranking.
I got the cockroach award.
But he's number one and I'm
Texas,
number
I
two.
know. Texas Monthly called me a cockroach. And that's good. They're hard to kill.
But here's the thing, our state representative is ranked number 40. What do we do about that? I mean, other than find a new state rep. So he's well liked, he's well loved. I like him, he's a good man. How is he ranked number 40 when y'all are ranked up here?
Well, again, you've got social conservatives, you've got fiscal conservatives. You know, I know Phil, and I like him a lot. He's a good man. And again, you know, Bryan came in first, I came in second in the Texans for Fiscal Responsibility poll. They don't count all of your votes. During session, my wife was hospitalized and I had to come home for 2 days, so I missed some votes. And one of my best friends passed away in Atlanta, and I had to go over there on an overnighter to attend his funeral and bury him. So I missed some votes. The Rice University poll counts, I think, everything, okay? And I kind of watched the board, and I watched some of these other members, and they've all figured out, I said they all, you know, present company, you know, excluded, because Bryan is Bryan, and he's a conservative through and through.
I'm just a Texan and a Christian. I do what I want to do, and I don't ask permission.
But
God.
the folks that are up there toward the top, you know, I sat there during session watching the board thinking, what? What are you doing voting red on this? This is good policy. Well, they're gaming the Rice system, okay? And they figured out the algorithms and how to do it. And, you know, you get enough no votes and your score goes up. So I take polls like that with a grain of salt. You know, I think there were top 16. I think Matt Krause was number 16, and I don't know, Matt Schaefer was number 1 or something, and then Bryan and I were in there, and everyone else in between. But again, it's all about policy, and you know,
If you look at policy, there's a lot of middle of the road stuff that our state reps, he's middle of the
Here, I will say this, and Bryan, you can verify it or not, but I don't know that I ever want to be a chairman. I don't know that I ever want to be a chairman or anything like that. Because once you become a chairman, you're beholden, okay? You're beholden to the power brokers and the people that are kind of leading the parade down there, okay? And I could tell in talking with several chair people that I consider close friends, and they just don't get animated. They don't say a whole lot, okay? They don't get their opinions out there. Pardon me? Well, that's why I choose not to be beholden to anybody except the people in House District 92, okay? And so it starts with prayer, and with your specific reps, you need to have conversations with them. You need to ask them pointed questions, and at some point, you know, wherever you feel like God is leading you or taking you in terms of your support, then you need to do what you need to do. But yeah, there's a lot of things that baffled us, surprised us down there, and you know, there's more to come. Yes, sir.
I ask a question for what of the other bills that are passed by Republicans? For the previous several sessions, it's amazing how many Democrats are passing our bills in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Even when we have almost 100 states, we're still in the Democrats pass the majority.
Yes.
But there's two things that we've done, in my idea. One, build the party, and two, fix some of this stuff we talk
one thing, they play a lot of games. They'll get a Democrat to kill it and to carry the bills, an author in one chamber and a Republican in the other. And they say, how can you be against it? Because the Republican carried it over there. Well, what I want to tell you is, you mentioned the pastors, and that isn't something important I want to mention. But, so one thing I also did, because I like to joke, is I would get shot down, right? I'd put an amendment up or something, they'd shut it down, they'd do a point of order, and my response to that would be, man, if I was a Democrat, I would be getting stuff done. That was my answer to everything, and I got cussed out during session because they got tired of hearing it, but that was truth. The Democrats get a lot of things done. They do. And how that we stop that is with leadership. Now, another thing that we need help with all over Texas is we're fighting this gender modification of children. How many pastors have preached sermons on this? You know, the 27 preachers in the Declaration of Independence were all preached from the pulpit. And the British went after the pastors. Okay? They gave them the name, the Black Robe Regiment. We need another thing to help with what we do. We have to have pastors preaching and leading on this. And we need pastors then helping support candidates. We do. We need that. I hear your frustration. I mocked it on the floor, and because they do. Democrats get things done. They do.
The reason they get things done is because there's promises made.
That's right.
So there have to be promises kept, okay? And it goes back to my earlier statement about the very delicate balance of power in that chamber. And nobody talks about it, but you have to be in our shoes. You have to be on that floor to see it and understand it. And you don't have to have it told to you directly to your face and spelled out in writing. You can see it, okay? And I go back to Speaker Feeling meeting with the Democrats before they walked out and busted quorum. And he was quoted as saying he would not lock the doors, okay? In other words, you're excused if you so choose. And that's exactly what they did.
So it's called a call of the house. That's his biggest bat in his bag. Call of the house to bring him in. He said, he told them, I'm taking that out. So that meant the Democrats had the biggest play. What was that? Busting quorum and walking out. We literally let them do what they want.
That's right.
It's frustrating. I mean, we are worried for our country, and then we have Republican leadership that is very just complacent. There's a lack of urgency. And I don't know, that's one thing I would say, talk to anybody, school board on up, talk to them, figure out where their urgency level is to save our country.
One more question.
We need to know where did we go to find out what our next vote for and do not vote for? Where do we know that?
Andy, he knows, I mean, there's statewide places, websites.
Yeah, you can
but
go.
Clubs like this, and I don't know, I mean, what else y'all have locally, that's what they're here for.
So are you on our email list by any chance?
Yeah.
You are? Okay, so we send out like emails throughout the session probably every couple of days. And we're sitting there, I don't know when you get on the list. But yeah, we blow your email up with what's going on. But yeah, the votes are all on that TLO website. You'll see I link it all the time. TLO, it's the there's a website that the state of Texas runs, and it shows you what's going on in the House, what's going on in the Senate. You can go drill into a bill, you can look at the journal and see how it's voted that day. So yeah, we actually had a citizen advocacy class. We're gonna have another one, so we'll invite you.
All right.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
It's
it.
great to be.
Okay, so one thing I want to talk about there, about that, so we are going to have another citizen advocacy class, and that was a class that we had everybody sit down, and we had a morning class, and folks kind of learned how all this stuff works, how the votes are taken, how we can actually make a difference, and how we can call. And one second here, one other thing that I want to mention is, one of the questions was asked, is how Phil King voted on that amendment to vote on abortion before bridges, and he voted against that. He voted to vote on bridges before abortion. And I also want to thank Representative Slaton and Representative Cason for coming, because I want to talk about how brave it is for them to do this and how to come to another district and to stand up in front of you all and tell you the truth is the way it is. Because this is kind of a risky thing for them. Let me tell you, yeah, exactly. One of the things that is actually more status quo, this is unusual. This is not how the GOP operates. You go to a GOP meeting, for instance, last month, me and Shelley went down to Parker County, to the Parker County GOP meeting. And these are good people. But you sit down and they say, okay, the guest speaker is Drew Springer. Drew Springer gets up. Can you ask any questions? No. If you want questions, write on a 3x5 card. Then you have a guy over to the right that's sitting there reading the 3x5 cards, and he's looking, I don't like that question. And he actually says that. He says, that's kind of a weird question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it, Drew. And so then Drew gets, the question. He can't answer it. Phil King's in the back of the room, and he starts coughing up information that is completely unrelated, and that went on for an hour. That's how this normally works. Was there any Q&A? No. Could you cross-examine? No. That's how this normally works, and that's how legislators stay in power year after year after year. And so this, where we have legislators in that tell you the real deal, here's how it actually works, here's what's really going on, this is how you change things. And so I just really want to thank these guys for coming up, telling us what really went on down there, and they did a great job of standing up to a very difficult situation on their very first session. So anyways, thank you all for coming. Hey, one thing, Diana, do you want to come up and talk about the school board meeting tomorrow night?
Just real quick, I am a resident of Decatur ISD. Decatur ISD school board, conservative school board members are getting slammed by local media. I encourage you to go tomorrow night to the Decatur ISD school board meeting. There's a special meeting on the superintendent's contract and evaluation. He's the same one that Andy mentioned that is on record of being supportive in a letter where he says he supports CRT, but then, or does not support CRT, then he spends like 2 pages. And conservative school board members in Decatur are their families, their children, they are getting slammed by the Wise County Messenger, by other community members. I encourage you to go to Wise County Messenger on Facebook and be supportive of them. And tomorrow night, the meeting is at Decatur ISD, the school administration building. And Bridgeport recently showed up in full. I mean, kudos to Bridgeport. Decatur's conservative Decatur ISD school board members need your support. I'm asking that you come and support them. Get there a little early at 5:30 tomorrow night. 2 things that you can speak on is just simply say that I am here, sign up to speak, and tell them that you are against social emotional learning and critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxism. But bottom line, I'm asking that you support Decatur ISD school board members. The conservative school board members are getting slammed by local media and community members that are very organized. That meeting is tomorrow night at Decatur ISD Central Administration.
You don't have to live there to go.
Yes, you do not have to live there to go, but they are people, and they're people that need our support. And if you don't have kids in the system now, you're going to have grandkids. We're going to have great-grandchildren. This is where it takes place, and kids are being indoctrinated now for what we're talking about that's happening now. They're getting them ready, so we've got to fight that. So tomorrow night, Decatur ISD Central Administration Building, sign up to speak at 5:30 and just tell them you're against critical race theory or social emotional learning. That's my job as a parent, not a school district. But tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Decatur ISD Central Administration. I'm sorry, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, my bad. If you want to sign up to speak, get there a little bit early, 5:30. And you can just say, I'm against SEL and CRT. And that's it. Anything else?
Yep. How's this up?
Thanks, everybody, for coming out.